Hello, I'm Beth Joey and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. This is the channel where I paint my face, turn my camera on and talk about some books. It's the weekend, I don't have any plans, I am well behind on my January TBR, it's nearly the end of the month, so I thought why not do just a quick cozy weekend of reading and vlog the experience for you guys to come along with me. It is January 28th, so like 3 days I think until the end of the month, roughly. I don't know, math, I can't remember how many days there are in January. 30 days has September, April, June and November, all the rest have 31 days in January. So I have like 3 or 4 days left of the month and 3 books left on my January TBR that I really want to read so that I don't have any sort of penalties or punishments going into February. The 3 books that I haven't yet finished are Kiss My Cupcake by Helena Hunting, The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary, Astra Parker Doesn't Fail by Ashley Herring Blake. Definitely a theme here, all romances, which means very quick and easy for me to get through. I have actually started Kiss My Cupcake and I'm enjoying it so far. I'm 28 pages in. But yeah, these are the 3 books that I'm going to plan to smash out this weekend. So hopefully get Kiss My Cupcake finished today and then the rest tomorrow. And I just realized that these are the 2 longer ones. This is the shorter one, so I haven't really planned this well. That's my plan for this weekend. As for what this first book is about, Kiss My Cupcake by Helena Hunting, it follows Blair Calloway, who as a result of having very overbearing parents that are definitely trying to force her to come into their business, she decides to go out on her own and put really all of her money and effort and time and investment into opening up her own cupcake and cocktails store. Literally everything is riding on this for her, and so she is hoping for perfection until she notices a really loud crashing noise coming through the walls. So she goes next door to inspect and finds out that a sports bar, a very loud sports bar with an axe throwing station, is opening up right next door by a sort of very attractive hipster guy named Ronan Knight. So this sparks a bit of a rivals situation between the two, playing petty pranks on each other and trying to ruin each other's business until one day an even bigger beast comes to town and they have to team up and work together in order to sort of help their businesses survive. And of course, tension, sexual tension, romance ensues. I'm super excited to see how that evolves in this story. As for my thoughts on it so far, I'm only 28 pages in, so Blair has just met Ronan. She is definitely a very excitable heroine, and I think there's a few issues in here that I'm having with the writing at the moment where certain things are like over-explained, and the author is trying to, you know, give the character backstory, but doing it in a very like tell not show kind of way. Like I've been told about 6 times just how overbearing Blair's parents are, and I don't really think the sort of over-explaining of that needs to be done, and then the over-explaining of just how sexy and attractive but also annoying Ronan is interesting as well. So not loving that in terms of the writing, but the rest of it is fun. There's a good little bit of banter, I guess, between the 2 main characters, Ronan and Blair, already. I love the inclusion of these like social media posts on at the end of each chapter, so that's like a nice sort of mixed media element in the story. I'm only 28 pages in, so not a heap to say so far. I'm just going to keep smashing out this book and just have a very cozy reading weekend. So I'll see you in my next update. I have got my drink, I've got my book, I've got my brand new ring light which I'm going to be testing because I'm filming at nighttime and it's leaving this sort of lovely circular reflection on my glasses, which is not ideal. But let's give a quick update on how I'm going with Kiss My Cupcake by Helena Hunting, and the overall verdict is not too bad, though slightly problematic. But I need a drink of this before we get started, so... Oh, that's good. That's whiskey, a new whiskey that I got from, I think it's based in York Distillery, and then some Coke, Fentimans like Coca-Cola. It's really good. And yeah, I'm enjoying this. As for Kiss My Cupcake, thoughts on this book so far? Like I said, enjoying-ish, but somewhat problematic. So let's go over the enjoying bit first. I'm loving the tension between these 2 characters. I think it's so much fun. I think their banter is enjoyable. The sexual tension is definitely being played up at the moment, which is very much enjoyable. Both of these characters definitely aren't able to hold back the sort of internal monologue that they are attracted to each other, even though conventionally in terms of how they look, they are surprised that they're attracted to each other. Ronan has a kind of hipster thing going on, and Blair has a kind of 50s vibe, big puffy skirts, all that sort of thing, and both of them are kind of confused by by how attracted they are to each other. It's enjoyable. I'm enjoying that aspect of the book. The bits that I'm not enjoying so much are, firstly, the whole concept of this fight that started between them. I mean, both of these guys are in the wrong and it is completely ridiculous. On Blair's side, she's clearly very emotionally invested in this cupcake store that she's created because everybody in her life thinks she can't do it, or at least her family thinks that she can't do it, and they're not supporting her. So naturally her emotions are heightened, so she sees everything as a slight against her. But then on Ronan's side as well, he's played a couple fun pranks, he's played a couple harmless jokes, which is totally fine, but he's also made a lot of decisions that he really didn't think through in relation to his own opening. He didn't think about how Blair would feel about those decisions. I can understand why she's seeing them as slights. I mean, at the end of the day, both characters are in the wrong. I'm definitely siding with Ronan at the moment because at least he's trying to clear the air. Like, at least he's trying to, you know, play some harmless and funny pranks, and he's visiting her store every day, he's supporting her business in that way, he's trying to clear the air, whereas she goes into full-on like insulting his physical appearance, his personality, everything. Like, she full on goes at him in a conversation where I think she even flicks his glasses or something, and she's crossed over into that sort of mean territory where she's physically and verbally like assaulting this guy, and I'm not a huge fan of that. This book is also dual POV, so we've got Ronan's POV and Blair's. So far, I think the first 4 or so chapters have been Blair's point of view, and we just got the first chapter in Ronan's point of view. Definitely played up the sexual tension, which I liked. It was nice to see that it's going to be a sort of he falls first kind of situation, or at least I think it is, because he's definitely feeling a lot more towards her than she seems to be in her point of views. Separately to that, there are 2 sort of major issues that I'm currently having with this book. The first thing that I'm having an issue with is the level of trauma dumping that seems to be happening at the moment. So Blair herself obviously has her own trauma relating to her family not thinking that she can do this without their help and not being overly confident in her, so she naturally doesn't want them around her business, and that's sort of her thing, and that's fine. And I think the way that is sort of evolving in her storyline is really a very interesting sort of plot point, I guess. But with Ronan, there is a lot of trauma dumping going on. His parents have died, so he's an orphan. Right around the time his parents died, I think his girlfriend broke up with him or something happened with his long-term girlfriend where they split up, and then right afterwards his grandmother, who then took him in, passed away as well, so he's now just got his grandfather left. So that is a lot all going on at once, and it's all loaded into this one chapter, and it just is very, very intense, and it seems like a lot to assign to a character, and it makes me worry that whatever the third act conflict is going to be, it's all going to be linked back to all of that, and I don't love that because it's a lot to really pile onto this character. The second thing is definitely the more prominent thing that I'm not a fan of, and it's the fact that Ronan has 2 incredibly problematic characters in his life. One of them, kind of understand, it's his grandfather, different generation, totally kind of get why his perspectives on relationships in the workplace might be a bit different, or he has to learn a little bit, like he has to be taught the way things are now. But there's a grown-ass man behind Ronan's bar who's making very, very worrying statements about workplace relationships and about flirting with other women in the workplace and what you're allowed to say to other women in the workplace. And I don't know if these 2 characters were put in here in order to make Ronan look better, because he's given the opportunity to kind of teach these 2 men what is and isn't appropriate when talking to women, when interacting with women, and relating to consent as well. I don't know if they're supposed to sort of make him look better, because he's definitely got a perspective that most people would agree with, in that, you know, you respect women, you don't make uncomfortable comments towards them, you respect their boundaries, and you just back off when they say they're not interested. But it kind of makes the whole situation really uncomfortable that he's having to explain to 2 grown-ass men that the way they sort of behave around women in the workplace, or their attitudes towards women in the workplace, are really, really problematic. Anyway, that's kind of my major issue at the moment. There seems to be a lot of really weird connotations around sex that are going on, and a lot of very like confrontational sort of moments relating to the flirting between Blair and Ronan at the moment. There's been a really interesting complication added in about this sort of food or best of blogger that's going to be coming around their way, and now they're competing to get this blogger to, or YouTuber I should say, to come to both of their stores and declare them the best of something. So the competition element is coming in, and I think that is going to be really interesting. But yeah, It's an interesting read so far. I'm finding some things with it that I don't love, but as for right now, I'm going to drink my drink, very much enjoy this drink, continue reading, and start making dinner tonight. Ben and I think, are making a sort of pork steak cut up into pieces with a satay, like peanut sauce and onion and rice and all these sorts of things. It's basically going to be pork, onion, and rice, but Ben makes amazing sauces, so he'll make it taste amazing. And yeah, so we're gonna do that and then maybe play some Xbox tonight. We found out that this game we really love, Fall Guys, it doesn't work on our PlayStation, but it does work on our Xbox, and we found that out last night, only to then find out that our Xbox controller, the batteries were out of battery, the batteries were dead. So we had to go out today to go and buy some batteries so we could somewhat drunkenly play Fall Guys tonight, because for some reason we're both better at it when we've had a couple. That is the plan for tonight, but I'm going to keep reading in the meantime, make dinner, and then play some Xbox. So I'll see you in my next update. Good morning. It is day 2 of this sort of cozy weekend reading vlog, and based on the fact that I have not finished this book yet, I'm going to make the assumption that I'm not actually going to be able to finish 3 books this weekend. So let's hope and pray for 2, or at least 1.5. I am slightly hungover right now because Ben and I did end up doing our sort of a gaming night that we were talking about doing, and we drank some whiskey, and you know, it was really enjoyable. Had a lovely time, but now obviously it makes reading a little bit difficult because my eyes are still a little bit blurry because they hurt a little bit from the headache. So that's fun, but we're going to move swiftly on from that and talk about Kiss My Cupcake, which I am now, how far in? 202 pages in, and the reservations I had previously, they're kind of gone now. I'm actually really enjoying myself in this, though I think the romance is taking a little too long for my liking. There have been some things that have just happened. Ronan has just met Blair's family, and I don't even know how to get into discussing that without like potentially offending someone. It's not clear if her family are swingers, which fine, totally cool, but the borderline sort of Addams Family, almost incestuous nature of it, not actual incest, no one's with anyone that they're related to, but like these parents, like her uncle and auntie and her parents swapped partners, like just swapped completely, and that is just a little bit strange, but she justifies it by saying they all kind of grew up together anyway, their families were all super close, and the families just kind of decided that they would be happier with a different setup, and that's fine. It's just it's a little bit weird. Ronan clearly agreed, and I really like how Ronan full on like came to bat for Blair when her family, you know, were complaining about her cupcakes were too high sugar and they're all on this keto diet so they can't eat them, and then he ate one and just about like, you know, food-gasmed while he was eating it, as he tends to do, and all of her family picked up the cupcakes and they finally gave her some credit for making these amazing treats. But now obviously they're dealing with the sort of a residual tension that's left over from that party after they were like very heavily flirting with each other and pretending to date. Sorry, my washing machine's going in the background so you can probably hear that. And they've got their first sort of big complication in that a bar is opening up just across the road from them, and it's a big chain bar, so they're really worried about the potential competition of that, because this chain bar sells like super cheap drinks and super cheap food, and it's shitty and everything, but they are currently working in a college town, so you know, college kids, they want deals and that sort of stuff. So they're finally deciding to work together, which is going to be interesting, and hopefully it gets the romance going a little bit faster. They've agreed to sort of promote each other, so hopefully that puts them in each other's like orbits a little bit more, and then that romance finally happens, because so far it's been a lot of sexual tension. Just going back a little bit though, I don't fully understand now, like I know I said at the beginning of this video there were like social media posts littered throughout this story that I thought were kind of cute, but now I don't fully understand the point of them other than to just add some puns in, just some funny puns and some weird quotes and adaptations of quotes. I don't think there's like, they don't add any value, there's no point for these little social media posts other than just a nice funny little clip. I would have liked to see more made of those and potentially give an insight into the character's mindset at that moment or something along those lines. Now that I've noticed that there are incredibly problematic men in Ronan's life, I cannot stop noticing them. There are so many problematic men in this book, and again, I don't know if they're there to make Ronan look better. I don't know if the weird situation with her family is there to make Ronan look better, or Ronan's horrible friends, or the people at the bar that Blair bumped into that Ronan kind of moved her away from. Like, there's just a lot of really shitty men in this story, and I don't fully understand the point of like full-on douchebags being so present. Anyway, I am going to get back to this book. I probably won't update you until the end unless something major happens, because I really just want to finish this now. And then, yeah, I'm gonna figure out whether I want to pick up The Road Trip or Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail next. I haven't decided yet, but we'll get to that in a bit. Let's finish this first. Okay, I have reached the end of Kiss My Cupcake, and it was just kind of underwhelming. I gave it 2.5 stars, and I think that's been a little bit generous. I think the ending of this was, yeah, really, really underwhelming. But as for my general thoughts, I went on a roller coaster ride with these characters. At first, I thought they were both just digging themselves in a hole and making complete asses out of themselves with how quickly they got into this petty argument with each other. Then the sexual tension kicked off, and I really, really enjoyed all the banter and like the sort of flirtatiousness and the sort of overtly sexual flirtatiousness. It sort of was abrupt and unexpected at first, but then I began to enjoy it because it was kind of fun and these characters were clearly having fun with each other. Then I began to lose patience because we'd gotten to the 60% mark and they still hadn't gotten together. But then I had a classic be careful what you wish for moment, because then they finally got together and I just lost interest completely. That sort of tension breaking moment was completely ruined. And then, you know, you move further in the book, the characters get together, it's really cute, it's really sweet, and then you get your third act conflict, which is kind of one of my favorite parts of romance novels. Like, I love the angst and the tension and everything, and it wasn't even a conflict. It was just a misunderstanding. Like, it was probably the worst execution of a miscommunication trope that I've ever seen, and that's actually a trope that I kind of like because I love the angst and tension attached to it. I didn't really love the execution of the two main characters. I also think Ronan got a lot of trauma dumped on him at the very beginning of the book, and so it was really, really hard to see his personality and his character through all of that. And then as for Blair, I just thought she overreacted completely. I could really feel the energy and the tension in the scenes where these guys were just flirting and just having fun, and just the sexual tension before they actually got together was absolutely really, really well written, and I really appreciated that. Once they got together, I just lost all interest. There was no angst, there was no tension. I thought the history of Ronan's family was really, really adorable, but again, wasn't anything that really added anything to the plot or to his character, because again, it was tied to his trauma, so it was really hard to see through that and just see him. The writing was a little bit info dumpy at the beginning in the way that Helena Hunting would kind of tell the backstory of these characters by infusing it into the dialogue in this kind of really stunted way. The pacing again was just kind of okay. Like Ronan and Blair, I feel like they jumped into this sort of antagonistic fighting sort of thing really, really early, and it didn't have a lot of basis. Like, I feel like a regular person wouldn't immediately hate someone and start this sort of war with someone over a like one sort of unfortunate encounter. I'm not even going to touch on Blair's family and like the complete outrageous ridiculousness that is that situation, but what I will touch on is why Ronan, who seems like he's a pretty nice guy, was able to just deal with and, you know, excuse the behavior of his staff, Lars, who is quite clearly very misogynistic and very sexist and very inappropriate as well. The logic for that wasn't logicking. And the last thing I want to say is I liked the social media posts at the end of every chapter, but I don't think they did anything. They didn't offer any insight into where the characters were at that point in time. They didn't offer anything really that added any value to the story. They just kind of were there as like a cute way to incorporate puns. I don't know, this book was really underwhelming for me, and I mean, you guys have seen my experience of talking about this. I was sort of hesitant at the beginning, really started to like it in my second update, and now I'm just really underwhelmed. That is the sort of review for Kiss My Cupcake. I gave it 2.5 stars. I've looked it on Goodreads, didn't love it, but it's finished, so now I need to pick my second book for this weekend, and it's probably going to be the last book, even though I plan to read 3. So we are tossing up between The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary and Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail by Ashley Herring Blake. The Road Trip, I have actually started this previously, and I was really enjoying it because it centers around these two characters who used to be in a relationship with each other and obviously broke up under very, very dramatic and tumultuous circumstances. And then one of the characters, she's on her way to a wedding with her friend. She gets into a car accident only to find out that the people in the other car that she's in the accident with is this guy she used to date and his friend. His friend, I remember being very problematic, didn't love that, but I think one of the cars ends up being completely totaled, so they decide to all drive together because they're all heading to the same wedding, and it's just the angst and tension for this I remember being really, really strong. So that might be kind of what I'm feeling now after the lack of angst and tension in Kiss My Cupcake. But I also am really keen to pick up Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail because of how much I loved Delilah Green Doesn't Care, and also it's a sapphic romance, and I'm kind of just feeling the sapphic romance and all the girl love at the moment. So as for what this one is about, I believe it follows Astrid Parker, whose life is kind of thrown upside down after the events of Delilah Green Doesn't Care. And so she's brought into a project, I think, to like renovate this really old stately home in the place that she lives in. It's all part of a TV program, I think. And then there's another woman, Jordan Everwood, who is the lead carpenter for the project and has very, very different ideas to Astrid of what she wants this to look like. So they keep butting heads. The showrunners ask them to play up the tension, and then the tension turns into a different kind of tension and a sort of romance ensues, sparks fly, all that sort of thing. I really, really loved Delilah Green Doesn't Care. I love the way it was written. I love the fun and the snarky and just the sassy of it all. So I really don't know which one I want to pick next because they both sound like they could be a lot of fun. I think I'm gonna go with Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail, partially because it's on so many TBRs at the moment, and also because it is shorter, so I have a better chance of smashing this out and then maybe jumping into this one later, because I remember this one being a fairly quick read and the text of this is really large. I'm gonna pick up Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail. I'll give you my thoughts in a bit. Hopefully this goes a lot better than Kiss My Cupcake did. It is 3 p.m. and I am like 86 pages into Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail, and I'm really enjoying this at the moment. There are a few things in it that are a little bit weird and stunted to me, but that's fine because generally as the rest of the book, I'm really enjoying it. It's good fun. I love that in literally one of the first scenes in this book that you have with Astrid, she has a full-blown meltdown, which basically sets the scene so well of exactly what character she's going to be. Like, she's going to be bossy and she's going to be type A and she's going to be like neurotic and she is going to want to be in control, everything done her way. She's going to be really, really high strung and she's going to be emotional, and I am loving the angst that implies because that is what I was obviously missing from the previous book. Whereas Jordan seems to be a bit more of like a free-spirited person, at least initially meeting her. Reading further into the book, obviously that changes a little bit and you see the emotional backstory with Jordan, which is definitely very, very, very intense. From that very, very first scene, this is definitely set up as a hate to love romance. But what I really like about this book is that that's not the only thing that this sort of hate to love romance is based on, because with Kiss My Cupcake it was like they had one bad interaction and all of a sudden they hated each other, whereas in this one they've had that one bad interaction, it's followed up by trauma that Jordan obviously has about the idea of this childhood home, this childhood memory being completely destroyed, and then sort of redirecting that onto Astrid, and that's what's creating this like tension between them, because Jordan sort of sees Astrid as the person who's taking away this big childhood memory for her. Already I am incredibly emotionally invested in these characters as well, because it's clear that both of them have been through a lot. Like, we've obviously seen everything that happened with Astrid in the previous book when, you know, she left her fiance because he was a controlling, gaslighting, horrible human being, and she had to get out of that relationship, and then her really unhealthy relationship with her mother. And that's another thing that I like about this book, is that wasn't glossed over. That's been incorporated, and her sort of somewhat stunted relationship with her sister has also been incorporated. It hasn't been glossed over, which is important because that's such a big part of the previous book, so I think it would feel weird if it just wasn't covered at all. Obviously Astrid's got a lot going on in her life, and then Jordan has a lot as well. It seems like she was married to a woman, or she was in a serious relationship with a woman for a very long period of time, and this woman left or died. I'm not 100% clear on what happened. And Jordan's life has kind of fallen apart. She was fired from her previous job because she literally just went into a full-blown spiral. She lit a small fire on a piece of work that she was working on because she just wasn't able to concentrate and was just absolutely spiraling. So she's been brought into this project by her family in order to like get her back on her feet, but she's still very emotionally struggling through everything that she's been through. I like that a lot of time has been spent at the beginning of this book before we get any major interactions between Astrid and Jordan. Time is spent with them individually, dealing with everything that they've gone through and really setting up their state of mind at the beginning of this story. The last thing that I want to say is that there is a lot of representation in this book, but what I'm liking at the moment is that it sort of feels like more authentic representation. There's a lot of diversity in terms of the producers on the show. It's a very female-led show. But anyway, I'm really enjoying this book. The writing's really good. The banter is fun. They've just had their first scene, I think, where Jordan is beginning to realize that she is attracted to Astrid, I forgot her name for a second. I'm excited to see how that is gonna develop, but at the moment they're just very antagonistic, very much trying to, Jordan at least is very much trying to just piss off Astrid and do everything she can to, you know, add some tension into the show because they've told her to play it up. So yeah, let's see how far that tension goes and see how quickly it turns into something more, because I am keen for this romance to get kickstarted, because I think the whole hate to love thing does get old if it continues for too long. I'm gonna keep reading, racing against the clock to get this book finished because I desperately want to finish it today, and I think I can, but it might be a late night tonight, so I'll check in with you in a bit. It's Monday lunchtime, so it's clearly not the weekend anymore, but how's about we pretend that it still is and that this vlog went entirely to plan, please and thank you. I've officially now finished Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail. For some reason, I'm really struggling to say that. I've had to film that 3 times, and I know I was going to update you guys like throughout the book rather than just sort of right at the end, but I won't lie, I spent the entirety of last night binging this book. Got up first thing this morning, read the last little bit that I had left, was absolutely hooked. I immediately had to get into work, but now that it's lunchtime, I have to give you an update on what I thought now that I finished it, because I could not stop reading this. If you can't already tell, I gave this book 5 stars. It is no surprise because I loved Astrid and Jordan with my whole heart. I say that so genuinely and so seriously. As I said before, I loved that you got time with each of those women before the book actually kicked off. So you got to understand their backstory, their history, their trauma, everything that was leading them to be in the sort of mental state and like physical whatever state that they were in when they actually met each other. And then it just made the tension so much sweeter because you understood the characters. You felt like you knew the characters because time had been spent actually with them separately before either of them started to grow, and grow they did. I loved seeing how Jordan just blossomed, it felt like. This confidence in herself and what she felt she deserved grew right alongside this sort of conflict in her mind about whether or not she actually wanted the thing that was making her so happy and whether or not she felt like she could. It's almost like she had imposter syndrome because she felt like she didn't belong doing what she wanted to do and what was making her happy, because there was someone else in the picture, Astrid, who was clearly more qualified than her, that was already doing it, even though Jordan really did not like anything that Astrid had put together, and I love the tension that created. And then I love seeing Astrid as well, like stand up to her mother, especially after the history that we'd seen in Delilah Green Doesn't Care, I think is what that one's called, but like seeing Astrid stand up to the mother, knowing the history of that relationship was just an absolutely amazing moment, and I like how that was handled as well. It wasn't some big dramatic full out stupid ridiculous thing. Like the mother actually took a beat and listened and gave Astrid time to like compose herself and come together before they started to rebuild that relationship. And then I love seeing Astrid as well finally give herself the chance to do what she actually genuinely enjoyed doing rather than what she'd always been positioned to do. And then Iris, lastly, Iris, I will say her little side plot in this book of the relationship that she was in and the sort of state that got her into in terms of saying like she's not interested in dating anymore, definitely had been really hooked for the next book, which is Iris Kelly Doesn't Date. I'm really keen to see someone change her mind on that front, and there's an excerpt of that first chapter in the back of this one, and it sounds so funny. I cannot wait to see that bold character come to life. Whilst it did take me a hot minute to get into the book because of that time spent at the beginning where you get to know the characters individually, like it takes a while to get into any tension. Once I was in, I was hooked. And I mean, you guys know that because I didn't update you guys. I was so hooked on every moment. Like I felt all the googly feelings when they finally got together. I felt the pit in my stomach that I get whenever like a third act conflict is done really well, and I feel the tension, especially in the third act conflict, and then obviously at the beginning the sexual tension between the two of them just had me absolutely swooning. I mean, I felt everything in this book. I will admit that there were moments throughout this book where Ashley Herring Blake kind of towed the line between naturally bringing commentary and social commentary and everything into the story, given the fact that it's about queer relationships and what it's like to be a queer person in the world, and then she sort of towed the line between that and lecturing her reader, and sometimes I think she fell slightly to the wrong side of that line because there were moments where it felt just a little bit preachy at times when she would talk about aspects of the queer experience. I didn't love that kind of felt lectury at times, but it was such a small part of the writing, and I think everything else was so amazing. The book was well paced. There was a lot of time spent between these two characters just figuring out who they were individually before finally coming together at the end. I think the sort of tension through to the relationship, through to the fight, through to the resolution all made sense, and I think the fight made sense as well. Like it was logical given the state and the histories of these these characters. It didn't have me disliking any of the characters. There was no like cheating, there was no miscommunication, there was nothing. It was just these girls really struggling to, or these women I should say, really struggling to come to terms with who they want to be versus who they're being told they have to be. Yeah, I generally really enjoyed this book. I think it is incredible. I think everyone should go and read it. I gave it 5 stars. I'm sad that it's over now because I had such a good time reading it, and I cannot wait for Iris Curley Doesn't Date, but it doesn't come out until like November, which feels like forever away. But that is the end of this vlog. I am going to be diving straight into the road trip this evening because I still need to finish this before the end of the month, because this is the last book on my TBR for January, and God forbid I do not want any punishments in my February TBR game because I didn't finish the books on the previous month's list. So I'm going to be smashing this out tonight, but you guys are just going to have to wait and see for my thoughts in a little bit. I don't know when that's going to be. I might start doing monthly wrap-ups again. I don't know, but you're going to have to wait and see for my thoughts in a future video. So I am wrapping up this vlog here. I hope you enjoyed this sort of weekend romance experience with me. It definitely started as a cozy vlog, but really began to realize that every single book I was reading was a romance. So I guess it turned into a romance vlog. Maybe I'll release this around Valentine's Day and it'll all be within the theme. Let me know in the comments down below what you're reading at the moment, if you have any plans for Valentine's Day, if you don't, if you celebrate, if you don't, come and chat to me in the comments down below. I love talking to you guys and I do my best to reply to every single comment. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do let me know by liking, subscribing and hitting that notification bell all down below. It is a super easy way to help my channel grow, and I will see you lovely people in my next video. Bye!